Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again, and I'm excited to get to some of the questions. So, and now Rob Gray is a patron, and it's always a great. I got to have a couple of meetings with Rob this week, and they were joyful. Well, was it this week? Over the last week or so, and they were joyful, and I thank Rob for that, and I thank him for his encouragement, his enthusiasm, and also his ongoing support. Like I keep saying it, having Rob in my community is a gift, and I am continually grateful for that. So here's his questions. It seems like some amount of isolation, separation is necessary for growth, and some amount of connection and contact are required for flourishing. I'm curious if there's a good minimum of each a person or group should aim for, or if you've noticed people or groups are good or bad at striking a balance between these two orientations. Yeah, so this has been on my mind off and on throughout the years, because I was deeply impressed by this triangle of Jung, Tillich, and Buber, where, of course, I actually, I would want to put Corbin in there, but Corbin wasn't originally in there for me, but he's now in there too. But so in Jung, you have an emphasis on individuation. And in Buber, you have, of course, an emphasis on participation. And then, of course, what we know is there was a debate between them. There was a debate between them in that Buber was very critical of Jung. They basically accused Jung of Gnosticism, which is true, but it's not quite clear why it's a criticism. But part of what Buber was criticizing is that Jung was really significantly missing the existential aspects of human spirituality, to put a useless word on it. And so I think that there's something to that, and that I forget the name of the person who wrote it. I think it's there's a very good book on the Jung-Buber debate, and showing how both sides were making very legitimate criticism. And then for me, behind that was Tillich. And Tillich was the person consistently arguing that human beings are constantly pulled between these poles of individuation and participation. And then for me, the answer to that, this isn't going to surprise people in some ways, but it surprised me when it happened. The answer to that, because I didn't see it initially, I found the answer to that in Plato. Because what Plato argues, and I've made the same argument around the idea of anagoge, is that the internal direction of cultivating internal justice, getting all the parts of the psyche to coordinate and cooperate for the most mutual internal flourishing, and the outward project of participating as deeply as we can in the real patterns of reality, that they are actually not, although they pull us in different directions, as Tillich says, and put a tension in our being, they nevertheless are not independent. And Plato's idea is, when the individuation project is not being pursued, we experience inner conflict, and inner conflict really distorts our external vision. And that's deleterious. And the opposite, right? So if we're trying to participate without achieving some kind of rational inner peace, then we're liable to engage in all kinds of horrible projection and get caught up in reciprocal narrowing, etc. But Plato also sought the other. If you just do the internal thing, right? If you just, as he would put it, internal justice, and you don't care about external justice, you are going to ultimately give in to some of the greatest biasing factors there are in human cognition: egocentrism, my side bias, confirmation bias, that aren't going to really be terrifically challenged by your completely internal move. That's why I'm always suspicious of people who tell me it's all just in your own consciousness. Maybe so, but that's not saying I have the capacity to properly access it. I mean, we do acknowledge, for example, that chimpanzees are wickedly intelligent. That doesn't mean they're capable of generating the appropriate theory of their own intelligence. So simply possessing a property does not guarantee the right ability to articulate and access it. And so the idea is, what you need to properly coordinate these so that you are cycling between them. And I think the group in history that got really good at that, Robert, were the Neoplatonists, because the psychotechnology, in fact, the meta-psychotechnology of dialectic, is about both this vertical alignment within oneself, right, and with the levels of reality, and the external, right, interaction with another who represents the otherness, the outside my egocentrism aspects of reality in cooperation with me. So the vertical and the horizontal aspects of are supposed to be clicked together so that anagoge occurs. They mutually reinforce and support each other so that the individuation and participation aspects are appropriately in coordination. So I'm starting to craft the argument that the groups, the current dialogical groups, and I've mentioned that they're all in emergence, and I'm looking at them and often doing participant observation, and I'm trying to see those groups that are trying to strike that balance in the way that it was struck within Neoplatonism and the practice of dialectic, and trying to use that as a justified metric for evaluating the degree to which these groups are most capable of affording flourishing in reality. So that would be my answer, Rob. I hope you found that helpful.
Saruman believes that it is only great power that can hold evil in check. But that is not what I have found. I found it is the small things, everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keeps the darkness at bay. Simple acts of kindness and love. Why Bilbo Baggins? Perhaps it is because I'm afraid. It gives me courage.